Most people think Toyota began with cars, steel, engines, factories. But the truth is far stranger. Before the machines, before the roads, before speed and power, this story began with thread, with fabric, with a man who didn't dream of engines, but of stopping a single broken thread from ruining an entire cloth. History remembers Toyota, but it almost forgot the struggle that built it. Because this story is not about success. It is about failure that refused to stay quiet. It is about a man who failed so many times that quitting would have been logical, reasonable, even respectable. And yet, he didn't. Not because he was confident, not because he was powerful, but because he was obsessed with solving one small problem perfectly. Long before Toyota became a symbol of engineering, its roots were buried inside frustration, poverty, and doubt. This is not a story of genius. This is a story of patience, of embarrassment, of rejection, of being ignored, and still choosing to continue. Because sometimes, the greatest companies are not born from ambition. They are born from desperation, from someone who simply refuses to let failure have the final word. And that someone was Sakichi Toyoda. Not the man who built cars, but the man who built the mindset that made them possible. Most people think success begins with confidence, with bold ideas, with big money. But this story began with something far quieter: frustration. In a small Japanese village, long before cars, factories, and global empires, there was a boy watching his mother fight a machine. Not a battle of strength, a battle of patience. Every day, the loom failed her. Thread snapped. Cloth was wasted. Time was stolen. And every broken thread whispered the same message: this is how life is. But Sakichi Toyoda refused to believe that. He didn't know engineering. He didn't know business. He didn't know success. All he knew was this: if something causes suffering, it can be changed. While other boys escaped reality, Sakichi studied it. While others accepted limits, he questioned them. His first inventions were disasters. Wooden frames that collapsed, mechanisms that jammed, ideas that embarrassed him. People smiled politely, then stopped paying attention. But failure didn't silence him. It sharpened him. Each mistake showed him one wrong way. And slowly, wrong paths began to disappear. Until one evening, the loom didn't break. The thread stayed intact. For the first time, his mother worked without stopping. And Sakichi understood something powerful. Progress is born the moment frustration becomes determination. This was not a victory. It was a signal. The beginning of a mind that would one day change industries. Sakichi Toyoda never saw his final dream completed. But he planted it. Like a seed in iron soil. He sold his loom patents. Not for comfort. For risk. For reinvention. For a question that sounded insane. What if Japan built its own cars? At the time, Japan imported everything. Technology, machines, confidence. But Sakichi believed a nation without its own engineering was a nation without its own future. So his son carried the torch. Not in cloth, but in steel. Factories shifted. Workers learned new crafts. Engines were torn apart and rebuilt. Failures returned. Loudly, violently, financially. But something was different now. Failure no longer scared them. Because Sakichi had taught one rule. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the path to it. Years later, a company would rise. Quietly, patiently, relentlessly. Not flashy, not arrogant. Just precise, reliable, unstoppable. That company was Toyota, and it existed because a man once stared at a broken loom and refused to accept that suffering was normal. Most people remember Sakichi Toyoda for what his ideas became, but the real lesson is not what he built. It's how he thought. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for confidence. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He looked at pain and treated it like a problem that could be solved. Broken threads became better machines. Better machines became stronger systems. And stronger systems became a future that reshaped the world. From fabric to engines to a legacy that still moves millions of lives every single day. All because one man refused to accept. That struggle was permanent. This story is not about Toyota. It is about courage before success, vision before validation, and belief before proof. If you're standing in failure right now, you are not behind. You are exactly where every real breakthrough begins. This is why we tell these stories, not to glorify success, but to honor the moment when quitting was easier than continuing. Welcome to Almost Failed Docs, where we explore the ideas, people, and dreams that stood at the edge of collapse before changing everything. If this story moved you, if it gave you strength, if it made you think differently about failure, then subscribe, because the next story is already closer to failure than success. And that's exactly where legends are born.